Wednesday, August 1st, 2018. We'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council Committee of the Whole to order. Roll call, please.
Fish.
Here.
Rachel is absent. Rupert.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Anderson is absent. Speedle. Speedle.
Oh, here.
Hicks.
Yep.
Packer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Yeah, turn up my hearing aids. Yeah.
First item on the agenda is a discussion item regarding public improvement 7199 Lincoln Avenue sanitary sewer. On call on City Engineer Brian Ybarra.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the council. Before you is Public Improvement 7199. This is the sanitary sewer improvements on Lincoln Avenue from Broadway to St. Andrews. Interstate Engineering has substantially completed the bidding documents for this project. We estimate the engineer's construction cost is approximately $665,000 for this improvement. Because of this, we must publicly advertise. If you recall, this project consists of generally 2 open cut excavations and more so the installation of trenchless cure in place pipe material in the sewer main line. We anticipate, I would like to see these open cuts spot repairs completed this fall by 2018 prior to going through one freeze-thaw cycle. The liner work could be done throughout the winter and be substantially completed in 2019. So that's how we will be setting up the specifications for these. So in the event we receive higher prices than estimated, or that budget's not allowing for the bid opening, we have the ability to reject these bids, but I'd like to wait and see till we advertise and get the actual prices. So at this time, I'm requesting, number 1, authorization to accept the project plans and specifications, and authorization to advertise for bids.
I would offer
Go
that,
ahead.
Your Honor.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Rod. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Item number 2 is an informational update on public improvement 9756 landfill demolition cell phase 3A. Again, Brian, you are.
Yes, thank you. Bradley Brothers, who's the prime contractor for the demolition and construction of cell 3A and the closure of cell 1 and 2, has substantially completed this project. Excuse me. At this time, we have some remaining punch list items to do, but we're waiting. Basically, the closeout documentation, as-built information of this new cell has been submitted to the PCA. Partial packets at this time, where I believe we've sent in the full package to the MPCA. And what we're waiting for is them to approve these as-builts so we can get the authorization to place this new cell 3A into service. To date, I have not received that information, but it's moving on a daily basis. So in the interim, city staff and Houston Engineering are discussing some work quantity extra claims that Riley Brothers will be ultimately memorialized in one change order. But I want to know it's one of the largest expenditures associated with this change order occurred near the bottom of the closed bottom of cell 3A. We found a significant amount of unsuitable soil material that was required to be removed and replaced. We had to put in suitable common material in this. We had a bid item accounted for this instance, however, the associated quantity of in place was an estimate. But however, this has contributed to a significant amount of cost increase. So we're approximately about, I believe, $20,000 over the construction contingency for this entire project. But what I have done to help mitigate that is we removed an alternate that was the installation of a guardrail system that was an amount of $17,700. We're going to find a different, maybe cheaper boundary marker installation on this. But I just wanted to open up and just give you an update. As soon as we get the approval from the PCA, authorization of fill will be ready. However, that's to be determined. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we can start putting this new cell into operation.
Question.
Any question? Yeah.
In the meantime, what are we doing with the demo waste? Then that's obviously going in the dumpster. Are we taking that to the county?
I believe, Len, that's going to are we transferring that? We're accepting it, to my understanding?
Yep.
And
We are accepting it and we're transferring it up to Gwinner.
Right.
Yep.
Is that obviously costing us?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
Your Honor?
Yes.
I didn't understand quite, was it the unsuitable soil was provided
are we the ones that are paying that extra overage, or is
Yeah.
it the contractor? So that was provided, the soil was provided by us, or we,
No, it was during the bottom of the excavation, at the bottom of the cell. That's where it was encountered, less than ideal. We have soil borings and everything, but did not anticipate this much material.
okay,
We had to do in some general areas up to a 5-foot extra cut to remove all this unsuitable material. Unsuitable being topsoil, organic peaks, non-buildable material.
right,
So we had to excavate that out, pay for it, and then bring in some common material.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? If not, we don't need any action on that. Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Next item on the agenda is Moon Valley First Edition.
Yeah, so now I'll pull it up on the screen here. This is in regards to before you is Moon Valley First Edition. This is generally located at, if you can see, this is a plat of County 111, and this is Otter Tail Power's easement over here. Excuse me. But we've been discussing this project, the city attorney and I, and representatives from the Beltran Trust and the neighboring property owners for this Moon Valley First Edition plat. But they're requesting authorization to permanently enhance the existing lots located along the east side of Buck Ridge Drive, which is shown up there. So in consideration, like I mentioned, we've been discussing this for some time. We have discussed, the city attorney, Ralph Nicomo, and I, we've negotiated some of the terms of what we would allow in regards to this type of development, and they have come back recently. And currently, if you can see where I'm kind of my cursor scrolling right here, is portions of the Beltran property. Is what they're requesting is to meets and bounds divide these adjacent parcels and permanently attach, enhance their existing owned properties along Buck Ridge Drive. Part of the negotiation is, and this is all privately held, but this area represented on the original plat in blue is an outlot, privately held. The red area is, I refer to as parcel D, and the green area is a dedicated right-of-way. So based on a declaration that's attached in this memo that's been prepared, and Ralph and I will do a further review, it's the declaration of restrictive covenants and permanent merger of platted lots within this parcel. This covers, memorializes all this information, what we're requesting. So if approved, this will also give the city the ability, it'll deed over parcel lot A and D to the city. I'm sorry, this mouse cursor is not seeming to be responsive and everything. So the red and blue, which is privately held, will be deeded over to the city. And the green area, which will be a further action presented to the council, will be, we're gonna start a vacation process. A petition's been developed and sent to the adjacent owners for approval that will be presented to the council as part of this swapping of land. I also want to note with these two, the red and blue areas, and how this relates to the city's ultimate. I don't know, Lynn, is it possible you could? It's kind of balanced. Can you go to the next, please, for me? The next PDF. Part of this corridor, how it relates to our infrastructure and everything, with the acquisition of these two potential parcels deeded over to the city, this allows us to expand our infrastructure. And I pulled up a map from the 1987 water main expansion map of a high pressure distribution system for the northeast area. This is from the Cleveland water tank. If you recall, many of you members do, in 2016 we did the Woodland Heights water main system that's been completed. Phase 1 is represented in, as shown in the area, and I also put a little marker right there of the specific area where this now, if this was approved, this would allow us to be able to traverse that whole corridor that's associated with Phase 1 and eventually move to Phase 2 if and when that's initiated by the City Council. So I also view that as a very important, critical component of this of this action before you. So,
Could I ask a question on that, Jan, or wait, do you want to have another? Just on that water main? At times I've sensed that there's a subtle, and it may not be obvious or intentional, but a presupposition that we are expanding to the north and east of Fergus as a primary area. I know when I grew up that, of course, was true with, the developments out at Hoot and Wright Lake, et cetera. Some of this land I don't believe is really as prime for development as others, but I just wanted to make a note of this because we have land to the southeast of Fergus toward the Prairie Lands Learning Center, a lot of land that's really easy to develop. But so just as we think about pipes and we think about infrastructure, I guess I'd like to put this on, Your Honor, on a future discussion of our work, when we work out our larger picture of Fergus Falls and planning, how we look at this, and maybe it's a planning commission issue. But, identifying the potential growth areas of Fergus and our infrastructure, so we don't spend more than we need to extending infrastructure for a not small number of lots. Anyhow, that's long-term planning. Thank you.
Mr. Spiegel, if I can add to this, the Woodland Heights is twofold. It can be used as distribution, but it's generally to expansion of the high-pressure zone associated in the northeast part of this town. That's for development. So that was the impetus solely, generally, for the Cleveland water tower, expand that high-pressure zone region.
Right.
So, but yeah, does it have the ability? Yes, but once again, we don't have a project initiated to move on with phase 1 or 2.
Okay.
This has been a long-range plan for this, but just illustrating with that dot, to move with phase 1, this was identified as a potential corridor for this new water main if it was to be constructed to the east. With this acquisition before you and this deeding over this property, we have the full rights now acquired to traverse that whole phase 1 corridor to reach phase 2, if and when that should ever happen.
Right. And then, Your Honor, one other question. On the properties that were listed along Buck Ridge Drive, that swap, does that involve more land mowing? How does that affect our upkeep and things that we do on that lot?
If it's right away, which I'm assuming it will be, it's the adjacent property owner's responsibility to maintain.
Okay.
Well,
At this point.
it's currently held as pretty much as general grassland area. So as far as weed control and everything,
Yeah.
I don't anticipate we would be doing any more than
Okay.
that. The initial one adjacent to Buck Ridge is an outlot and everything too as well, so I would assume it'd be maintained as such until development occurs.
Yeah, thank you.
Rod, thank you, Brian. Do we have any further questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to bring this to the council.
I'll make that motion. I'll second it then.
Was it Rod?
Anthony and Brett.
Brett, all right, thank you. Anthony, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Next up is a regional treatment center RFP process on the tower, and I'll call on Andrew Bremseth and Anthony Hicks.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Members of the committee, good morning. At the last city council meeting, we initiated an RFP for building number 29, which is the memorial building. And since that time, I've had some good discussion with Councilmember Hicks and others about kicking off an RFP process for the tower building. It's obviously one of the most desirable redevelopment pieces up at the Regional Treatment Center campus. And it doesn't do the city any good to just continue to sit on the building being vacant. And with some of the pieces in somewhat of motion on the east and west attached, it makes a lot of sense to begin a targeted and direct effort to try to get redevelopment to happen at the tower in a similar time frame. And the reason I say that is because when projects are using historic tax credits, there's a 5-year window at the completion of the project that the historic integrity cannot be altered or affected. And if there's multiple projects and multiple developers using historic tax credits up at the campus, it would be nice to have those 5-year windows running concurrently rather than consecutively. Otherwise, we could really drag this thing out well beyond a decade for resolution of the rest of the building if there's not developers that come along in the meantime to take that over. So just being cognizant of how long the issue has been running and wanting to avoid running even further into the future without final resolution, I think it makes a lot of sense to start this targeted effort again now and run at somewhat of a similar time frame as the Building 29 RFP that we approved at the last meeting.
Councilmember Hicks?
I think as Andrew said, we obviously had discussion, and it was kind of the thought process was if we could run, we could do kind of, obviously it'll be a bigger advertisement, but if we do an advertisement for 29 and the tower at the same time, we could run those two projects down a similar timeline. If we can get somebody interested in the tower, and then we've got somebody interested in the two wingtips, then the infill piece might take place a lot sooner and a lot quicker. And there's a number of people that have, expressed interest in the memorial building, so maybe the spillover, it'd be a good time to advertise it. And I think it shows a positive thing to the state that, we're using the money to go with, we've mitigated risk dramatically, or so far we've taken down a chunk of the RTC complex of non-essential buildings and tunnels. We've got the next phase that we're working with the state on, Schiphol, and then this is kind of into the third phase of trying to get development on the remaining buildings.
Sounds yes, Anthony.
I would just want to add as well, I didn't mention, but, the RFP would focus on the tower, but certainly would entertain, if somebody was interested in a larger footprint, it would make note of the fact that we would entertain that as well. So if they needed to spill out into the wings, we certainly would not stand in the way of that.
Sure.
Just clarification, the wingtips, what were they again? You talking about, is that east and west attached?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I had wingtips in high school and I didn't know if they were, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Speedo.
Have you still got them?
Yes.
I've still got mine.
So we'll look for a recommendation to the council to proceed with that RFP for building one.
I would make that recommendation.
I'll
second that, Your Honor.
Agenda.
Thank you, Darren. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a release and termination of development agreement with Campus Development Group. Andrew Brumsack.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor, members. In 2011, the City of Fergus Falls and Campus Development Group, which is Jeff and David Schlossman and Kevin Bartram, entered into a development agreement for the red brick buildings and the nurses' cottage up at the Regional Treatment Center. And there was an amendment to that agreement in September of 2013, which amended the square footage redevelopment obligation of Campus Development Group. And with the opening of the newest apartment building last year and the other small apartment building that they've redeveloped, they have met their square footage redevelopment requirement within the time frame, which was December 31st, or December 1st, 2018. And they have satisfied all other conditions of that development agreement, including stabilization of the nurses' cottage. And the city has now recently satisfied our conditions of the agreement, which was the removal of the tunnel to I want to say building number 5, which is the red brick building. And so the Campus Development Group is requesting a release and termination of that development agreement, which is fairly standard once the terms of the agreement have been satisfied. So we are recommending to the council to direct the mayor and city administrator to execute the release and termination of the development agreement. There was a sample of that agreement in your packet. There may be a few terms of that change, but nothing material. Just a few words for comfort level of the development side. So today we're looking for that recommendation, or we're suggesting that recommendation.
Any questions?
I'll offer that recommendation, Your
I
Honor.
would second it.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Jim. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
I think we should just note that we should thank Jeff and his team for accomplishing it. We had some bumps in the road, but, perseverance and patience, it
Absolutely.
worked, and it got it done.
Come to fruition.
Yep. Okay, item number 6 is a mosquito spraying cost update. Guy Taylor.
Thank you, Your Honor. There had been some renewed interest in looking at the cost of doing a mosquito spraying program for the city. So I was asked to look at some numbers, and I did get one quote from Airborne Custom Spraying out of Hallstead, Minnesota. I did check with the local ag sprayer, and he's just not able to do anything over the city itself because he only has single engine planes. So that's why I had to go looking elsewhere. But the Airborne Custom Spraying, their quote was for $25,906 to do a single application. That would be just an aerial application, and they do all the spraying for cities of, well, Moorhead, Fargo. They do all of Cass and Clay counties, and then they do multiple cities in the region. Some cities do 3 applications per summer. Some do every 2-week application. So with that $25,000 cost, you can see it mounts up pretty quick. And that wouldn't be the only cost that we would need to incur to have a really effective program. To really get the larva, we'd have to do ground spraying, which would be a pickup mounted sprayer fogger that would go up and down alleys and streets, areas where there's standing water. So that would be an additional $7,200 or so just for the unit, and then we would mount it in a pickup that we've got in the fleet currently. So then there would be staff time involved in that also. So the overall program, it gets pretty costly real quick. So I can continue looking into it if you'd like, or we can table it. So this was just advisory.
So that's $26,000, that was for a single application?
Yes.
Wow.
The city of Moorhead, the way they fund it, they have a pest/vector control fee that they just put on the utility bills, and we've got to work this through, see if it's even legal for us to do. But they charge $1.20 per resident for the service, and it covers their costs. So we implemented a fee last year for tree management of $1.50 per resident, and that nets us about $90,000 a year. So if we did something similar, we could maybe cover our costs, but.
Okay.
Your Honor?
Yes, right.
What's the date today?
August 1st.
August 1.
Yeah, August 1. So we're into August, and we're talking about mosquito spraying. But I think that's, way too much money, and I would say I'm absolutely opposed to any fee increases that would go on regularly for our residents. I think the case can be made that mosquito spraying doesn't do a heck of a lot of good in many cases, and it also creates problems for other people who have bees and other things. So I think I don't know how many complaints there are, but I guess I'd like us not to pursue this and not to have our staff take time with it anymore. My grandchild has learned how to swat mosquitoes when they come on him. I think we have to do that in Minnesota. So.
Isn't it the national bird?
That's North Dakota's national bird.
I think I'm presuming that's the general consensus of the
I
council.
would say for now, I mean, it seems like with the advent of a new mosquito-borne illness every couple years that it's probably gonna, I don't know, maybe we'll have to look at it again down the road, but I've heard from a few people that, live on the outskirts of town that are concerned about it, but I mean, with that kind of money, that's a trade-off that we're gonna have to examine. But
Maybe
at this
Bill-
time, I don't think using it as staff time is.
Bill could just remind us what $100,000 would mean if you put it on the taxes.
It'd be like 1.5% or
Yeah.
1.75%.
So it'd be a 1.5% to 2% increase on your property tax bill.
We wouldn't have to put it on the taxes, we could put it right on the bill like they do in Moorhead,
Yeah.
on the utility bill. I mean,
But whether you pay it on the utility
Well,
bill or you pay it
it's-
on the property tax, it's.
we already have stormwater on there, and there's numerous folks out in our area that have no stormwater coming around their way, so I hear complaints about that all the time.
And I hear a lot of complaints about the mosquitoes, and I think for the minimal cost on the utility bill, some of the people might say they'd be willing to pay that. So.
I hear a lot about the mosquitoes too, out in our area. Now, we have a pond in our backyard. We have no problem with mosquitoes. I don't know why.
Ducks, probably.
Your Honor, I just want to mention, every June and July, the influx of calls and concerns start coming in, and then the news articles about West Nile, this and that, don't help the conversation. So the intention was to show truly what the cost is, and I have a feeling we're going to be doing this on an annual basis because this conversation comes up, and it is a call that we get quite a bit of, and a lot of questions and concerns. So really, it's the intention is to show what the cost would be, and if there's an interest from the council or from the community to fund it, we'd be glad to do it. But otherwise, this is the price we're going to have to pay to potentially eliminate the problem of mosquitoes. So if we want to park it
I
for
think the
year.
concern is not the inconvenience of having mosquitoes, but it's the public health. And as Tom mentioned, when there's mosquito-borne illnesses, that's my concern. If we can just get an idea of I mean, I don't know how we do that, but what the public health risks are. I mean, that's the true topic of discussion.
Well,
What's the public health risk of the spray itself? I mean, I'm not,
Never you mind.
There would be concerns, definitely, but the applicator that I talked to, they said that they'd have a pretty good campaign to inform the public as to the chemical that they use and the effects, and just to dispel any rumors or falsehoods that are out there concerning spraying. So they would help us in that if we were to do anything with them.
But again, I agree. It's just to have that discussion so that everyone's, I mean, we're getting calls at City Hall one way or the other, so just to have that discussion.
Can we get, Len, a list of the chemicals that he's going to be using, or is that in his bid?
I have it, and I thought I included it in the packet.
Okay.
It's in here, I was just looking at it. It's kind of in the middle of the memo, one of the last
Okay,
bullet points.
and then
But
in
we're
the
obviously not
meantime,
going to go forward with this year.
Not
This
this
is an
year.
informational item. So
Not
maybe
this
what
time.
we do is talk about this in the early spring of
Yeah.
next year, when we can have this full discussion about, both sides of the issue, the public health, the disease from mosquito-borne illnesses, but also the chemicals being used, and we can get, that all the information out and just make a decision at that point.
You could attach ticks into that too, if you want.
Sure.
and then in the meantime, Bill, or Len, talk about the implications with the utility side of it.
And that's, I was gonna say, we would talk with our tax levy committee a bit, because obviously we wouldn't do it this year. This would be something for next year, so we could even talk as the levy committee a little bit about the budget side of that, which is the utility side of it as well, so.
Okay.
All right. Yes, Tom?
Well, one way that we could maybe make some progress in the meantime is, and save some money, would be a, public education campaign on, making sure that you don't have any standing water in your yard, old tires, that kind of thing. Just, I don't know if we could send something out with utility flyers, or with utility bills.
Can't have old tires in your yard right now anyway.
We could do
You don't have any in
something,
yours, do you?
Facebook and website, we can do stuff like
Yeah,
that.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they're on his vehicle.
It's on blocks.
Mosquitoes come from the county because they blow in from the south. So I'm wondering if we can't ask the county to, maybe chip in here.
Is it in the next utility bill? There is
Pay the
gonna be
whole county?
reminders?
There is.
Is that?
Well, I was
Okay.
looking at Lynn, we do some of that education already, I believe, right?
Okay.
Sure. All right, so we agree we'll have a further in-depth conversation this leading into the next mosquito season. All right. Item number 7 is a council chambers audio and video update, and we'll call on Guy Taylor.
Just to let you know, we're continuing to work on that project. We met a couple times recently just to talk through exactly what our goal is. Right now, what we're looking at is replacing all the mics, all the cameras, and all the control equipment. And we were thinking of having a document camera up here. We've eliminated that. The wiring for all the jacks underneath the desks, we need to relocate that, so that's being looked at. And then also looking at the possibility of maybe wireless mics. But I think that, we'll see how that comes in, but I think that might be cost prohibitive. But we're continuing to work on it, and hopefully we'll have the project completed in the next couple months.
Yeah, I wanted to add, I know that I was on this earlier, a year ago, and the money's there for it. It's been set aside. PEG access money is there for this upgrade. That's been set aside from the budget.
Correct.
And-
That's for the video portion?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the combination, we're not lacking for that. So basically, we're looking for a bid response. As I understand it, after our last meeting, we're basically going out for a bid on this, getting it
Yeah, we're-
finalized, right?
Yeah, the numbers that we're looking for will come from Tierney. They're a contractor that we use through Lakes Country Service Co-op.
Right.
So it's through the state contract, and so we're getting an updated quote from what we had this spring, and now with the changes, looking for that update.
And I think just for the council's sake, we talked also about the need for going digital from what we've had. And that this will allow us then to use direct access to website on certain issues if we want to move that, upload something quickly. And also the meetings would be available very easily on a format that's, not a tape. So
Right, yeah.
there's so many advantages to this. We just want to get it done and have everyone be able to hear us and, and use this stuff too. So there's some utility value here for the city, in its website, so.
All right, thank you, Guy. One additional agenda item, and that is Brian Yubaro has the RTC Environmental Impact Study. That's from last meeting. Is it this meeting?
Is it the environmental, oh, yeah, for RT Phase 2, I was hoping to present it to the council, the results of the AW Phase 2 open house to the the next city council.
Okay.
In a more formal, the
I just have a
results.
sticky note here on my desk from Lynn, and
No, and that is correct, that is
Okay.
correct, we did not get it, but it figured it'll be presented to the city council, those results for that determination for an EIS
Okay.
and everything,
So
recommendation
it'll be
regards to
coming
that.
on Monday to the council, sounds good. Any other items to come before
Your
this
Honor, just a
committee?
couple of things, if I could. Maybe a question to Len on obviously they've done some work on the roads with the gravel. Are they going to vacuum up the surplus of that, or is it just going to go into storm drains?
It will be swept up.
Right.
Yeah, it needs to stay there for a little while. I don't know if it's 2 weeks it's staying on the road.
2 weeks.
And then
Right.
it'll be swept up, but it needs that contact time on the oil to get embedded down in there as
And
good
then,
as
and
it
obviously the
can.
traffic going over it, yeah. I had a couple on that question. And then the other thing that obviously we talked a little bit at the Port Authority meeting, but obviously in our retreat, we kind of identified some areas that we wanted to look at. And I'm cognizant of the fact that we need to get a plan together on how we're going to finance all these projects. And, we should have a meeting to identify what projects we're going to work on and, start putting something together on a bonding 2020 program. If we're going to go to the state and ask for money, time's ticking away. And we at least, obviously there's the potential that some of the legislators might change in November, but I think we need to have a plan identified of what we're going to go for and how much we're going to go for. And, there's things like, obviously there's quite extensive, there's Lake Alice, there's trails, there's the dairy property. We've got a number of projects out there that we've identified, but we need to put the time in to get a plan together on which, narrowing it down to those projects.
That'd be a good idea.
Whether we have a work session on it, prior to a council meeting or something, but I think, that's kind of our job is to go to the state, and we've got a lot of traction with the state at the moment. And, if we use it right, Bemidji's taken a lot of money from the state. Now it's Fergus's turn, but we got to ask for it.
Yeah, the relationships are there
Yeah.
now, so.
Are you asking for a retreat or?
No, I think we can do a work
Say a work
session.
session.
A work session. Identify the projects, get an idea of the dollar amount, and then, we can then we can go and work on the money. We've approved the Aquatic Center doing an RFP. Well, if 50% of that could come from bonding, that's 50% of that funding already sorted out.
Hunter, we have a work session scheduled already in August, or on Monday, for the pavement management for the roads, so that'll be helpful to that discussion. It'll show you condition of the roads and what kind of money we will have to invest in going forward to get the condition of the roads to improve. And we're talking about all these things through the tax levy committee right now, just trying to wrap our heads around everything and begin to think about how this will lay out. But we should look likely in September at getting a work session put together and begin to talk about those things. I know Bill and I would appreciate some guidance as to what projects could be included, and so we can begin to wrap our heads around what kind of funding we're going to have to lay out and how that's going to look. So.
And I think if we do that, we can narrow down the projects, and then if it's a project outside of that scope, then we can because I think at the moment we're kind of like squirrels. We're chasing every nut that falls from the tree, and we're not concentrating on getting 5 or 6 projects done.
Right. The other thing, Your Honor, I would mention, if you look up on the screen right now, Len put together with the help of department heads, just a city project update. We went back through the minutes, or I should say Len went back through the minutes from May of 2017 to July of 18, and just pulled the projects and the directives that we've been working on. And like you mentioned, it feels some days like we're chasing every nut, and you'll see that the list is lengthy and there's a lot of balls up in the air. And so we're doing this as a way to help keep the council informed, but also to help us keep our hands wrapped around everything that we're juggling up in the air. And you can see that there's all kinds of projects going on and all kinds of things moving, and so trying to keep sense of everything. And I know that we have to prioritize as staff, and sometimes we don't get things back to you guys as soon as you would like, but I think this justifies some of the reasons why we have a lot going on. So.
Jim?
I think it's more than a 1 hour thing. I think we should get together of an afternoon at the fire hall like we've done before, and make it however long it takes. Start at 1 o'clock, and when we get done, we get done. It's more than
I agree with
just
that.
an hour trying to pack all that together.
Sure.
And
Maybe we could start to look at sending out some dates. Yes, Rob?
are we done with that one? I had another item.
We'll send out dates and try to find.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
2 things. I want to thank Public Works for doing a great job fixing the sidewalks on Elcott. I brought that up at another meeting, and it's really helpful, and for safety reasons as well. The second thing is I'll be hosting Jillian Reiner today, looking at the trail route through Fergus. She is the new consultant with the Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails statewide. She's out of Wenatchee, Washington. Has worked on the Columbia River Gorge and trails and dams there. So she's a very informed person, also key to our funding. Anyone who wants to join me for lunch with her, give me a call. Okay, you're welcome to come. We're going to be walking our route or biking it along, and also looking at the connectivity to the south side of Maplewood, which is a long-term thing, but involves us thinking about how our corridors that we've now prioritized with MnDOT and with the state of Minnesota Parks and Trails, how they will work out in a timeline. So she's a crucial piece to that. I encourage anyone to come and meet her. Very good person. So, thanks.
Thank you, Rod. Just a couple announcements. Yesterday, July 31st, filing for city council positions open. That runs through Tuesday, August 14th. Come down to City Hall and see Lynn, and she will help you with the paperwork necessary for that. Next Monday at 4 o'clock, there's a work session, as Andrew mentioned, regarding pavement management, and Brian's going to walk us through those results and what that tells us about our streets and what we need to do. August 14th is the primary election. So again, information at City Hall if you need to know where your place to vote, your voting station is. And August 15th, there will be our next committee of the whole meeting. August 6th to 5:30 is a regular city council meeting. So any other business to come before the committee? If not, we're adjourned.